and welcome everyone. My name is Susana Paredo-Swap, founder and executive director of an all-volunteer nonprofit called Vanguard Culture that works to advance San Diego's creative industry workforce. Vanguard Culture provides award-winning arts coverage, professional development for creatives, and unique cross-industry events that encourage creative collaboration across all industries. We are thrilled to be premiering the second segment of our History of Joy series tonight. A big thanks to all of the donors, sponsors, and community partners who made this evening possible. We could not do this without your support. Written by California Poet Laureate nominee and multi-award winning spoken word artist Gill Sotu, The History of Joy is inspired by true stories of struggle, beauty, and triumph. Produced in partnership with the Rosin Project, this 4-part film series attempts to poetically tackle pressing issues of our contemporary world in a way that encourages introspection, humility, compassion, and positive action. This film pulls inspiration from the 8 pillars of joy outlined in the Book of Joy by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu with Doug Abrams. Join us for all 4 segments to learn more about the 8 pillars of joy and how to apply them in your daily life, even in spite of life's, quote, inevitable suffering. If you attended our first segment, Social Justice, you were introduced to the first 2 pillars of joy, humility and perspective. Tonight, our theme is generations and sacred rituals, and we will explore the next 2 pillars of joy, humor and acceptance. Save the dates for our last 2 segments, womxn on September 23rd and Our Earth on November 18th. If you're an art lover, we also encourage you to explore our History of Joy art prints designed by visual artist, actor, producer, director extraordinaire, Herbert Seguenza. Now, let's talk about generations and sacred rituals. To put us all in the mindset, I'd like to share an excerpt from the book. It states, quote, reflect on all of the people who are responsible for your life. Parents, teachers, people who grow your food, make your clothes, and countless others. The ancestors who had to live, survive, so that you could be born. They had to brave enormous hardships so that you could live the life that you do. Reflect on this and do so without judgment. The way we live our life either honors the unique legacy of each generation or it redirects it. One choice is not better than the other, but it is a choice. So, when we talk about sacred rituals, what do we mean? Well, in this context, a sacred ritual means something that you do regularly that brings you joy and represents your true essence. Something that carries a lot of meaning for you and makes you feel like your truest self. It can be almost anything as long as it's sacred to you. The hour of silence before the rest of the household wakes up, a moment of meditation, exercise, prayer, reading a good book, cooking, or listening to good music. So tell us, what's your sacred ritual? Please share it with us in the chat. Okay, here's my sacred ritual. During the pandemic, like many others, our little family dealt with enormous stressors. My husband, an ER doc, was on the front lines, directly treating COVID patients, while I homeschooled a kindergartner and a first grader who couldn't understand why they weren't allowed to play with their friends and they couldn't hug their grandparents. I was also virtually running Vanguard Culture, a nonprofit that needed to step up to support the region's creative industry workforce during a very critical time. Our little family made art from recycled objects. We went bike riding, we invented crazy games. We hiked down to the ocean to collect shells. But there is one activity that has become our most sacred ritual, our most cherished experience during the pandemic. And now beyond. We sit on our patio steps, we overlook our yard, and we wait for nature to do something. My son and daughter literally summon it by saying, come on, nature, show us something. What you got today? I swear, we cherish every squirrely squirrel and wispy cloud, and we have named every fleeting butterfly. Chocolate, vanilla, pineapple, and monarchy visit us the most often. It has become a way for us to come together in the safest, most peaceful place possible and just sit in gratitude for what we already have, each other. In between those little moments, we are completely present with one another. There is peace, silence, and gratitude. I will forever cherish those moments with our children. And as we look toward the future, we have an opportunity to consider the legacy we've inherited, both good and bad, the legacy that we are living and transforming every day, and the legacy that we will leave behind for future generations. The two pillars of joy that we're exploring today are humor and acceptance. So let's lean into that a bit further by kicking off the night with our first video and conversation. Now, just a quick note, this event is just under 3 hours long, but it is filled not only with our 30-minute feature film, but also 5 short videos and conversations with some of our wonderful cultural partners in response to the theme of the night. We've cut each conversation down to about 10 minutes, but in order to honor the beautiful moments captured with them, we will make the full interviews available to you after this event is over. Now, we don't want to keep you in suspense for too long, so we will begin with just 3 of those conversations. Then halfway through, we will premiere our feature film and then invite you to stick around for 2 more short videos that you do not want to miss. As always, once the segment has gone live, you will have access to watch the recording again and again, anytime. The first video of the night was submitted by our friends at Constellation Press, an indie publishing company for genre fiction that aims to give a voice to independent writers and create a supportive community for local authors. Listen carefully to this story. It is a beautiful and art-filled homage to the author's longtime friend. Please enjoy The Brooch.
The Brooch. On January 7th, 2020, my friend, the artist Susanne Mühl, died. Susanne and I knew each other since we went to school together in our German hometown Stuttgart. I became an art historian and author, and Susanne a successful artist who exhibited in museums and galleries in Berlin, London, and New York. We both moved to New York and then to San Diego. Susanne has been a part of my life for so long. The hole she leaves is tremendous. For Day of the Dead, I made an altar for Susanne. It was covered with orange cloth and studded with examples of her art, including her bloody boxing gloves. She used to be a fighter with a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu. She was also a guerrilla girl, one of the feminist art activists in 1980s New York who fought for more representation for female artists in museums and galleries. After her death, I found a pair of boxing gloves with a sticker, "I'm a guerrilla girl." During their lifetime, the guerrilla girls stayed strictly anonymous because their mission wasn't about them as individuals, it was about all women artists. Susanne was a fighter once, but in the end, she gave up hope. Her picture on the altar is framed by orange marigold flowers. In it, she wears a lei of orchids. She has a slightly lopsided, skeptical smile. Skeptical she could handle. Despair, not so much. Another picture on her altar shows her slim, sick body lying on a bed, and in another she sits in front of a bed with her wire sculptures behind her. Many of her artworks feature a bed where she spent so much time of her life. Other pieces include birds in cages with open doors, birds made of tin or enamel, birds too heavy to fly. On my desk sits a black lacquer box from her possessions. Inside are 6 maroon-colored 35mm bullets, the ones that were left over. A red velvet pouch in the box contains a legacy handed down to me by Susanne. It came from her mother, her grandmother, and her great-grandmother. I don't know how I fit into this line, except there was no other living relative left. I didn't want this inheritance. I tried to refuse and give it back. Instead of a small piece of jewelry, I wanted her, my friend, a little longer. I really don't care about possessions, even if they've been handed down for generations. Since it was so important to her, and since I ended up with this little brooch against my will, I feel I have to explore its significance. It's a small golden pin of a four-leaf clover about an inch in diameter. I find it quite ugly, kitschy even. It has no meaning for me. I'm not Irish, not superstitious, and don't believe it brings luck. It didn't bring Susanne any luck, and it didn't do much for her mother either. I never saw Susanne wear the pin, but she left me an envelope with pictures of her, her mother, her grandmother, and her great-grandmother wearing it. There's also documentation with dates about when this brooch was transferred from one generation to the next. This type of legacy weighs heavily on me. What am I supposed to do about it? I do not believe in the erotic life of property. Possessions only have power over us if we give it to them. Mainly, they become burdens to weigh us down. I believe in the spirit of trees and animals, even rocks in nature. But a little piece of jewelry? On the back of one of the clover leaves is an engraving, Juin 1884. In June 1884, Margaret Adler, Susanne's great-grandmother, acquired this little pin as a souvenir during a trip to Paris. I'd like to know more about this visit. What did Margaret see? What did Paris look like in 1884? It was 5 years before the Eiffel Tower. Did she visit the Louvre? In 1884, the winged victory of Samothrace was first exhibited in the Louvre Museum after its discovery in the Aegean Sea. What other artwork did she see? Rembrandt, Fragonard, Watteau? In 1884, Claude Monet had just moved to Giverny and painted haystacks in the Impressionist style. Seurat painted Afternoon at the Grand Jatte, portraying his fellow Parisians in their Sunday best, enjoying an outing into nature. Renoir painted sun-speckled gardens populated by fashionably dressed Parisian ladies. Middle-class Parisians enjoyed the café society and strolled the broad boulevards during their newfound leisure time. The Statue of Liberty loomed over the streets of Paris before its shipment to New York. Parisians and tourists alike moved around the city in horse-drawn carriages and in the very first open automobiles. Women wore long dresses and high-colored blouses like Margaret Adler in an early photograph from 1884, another souvenir from her journey wearing her brooch. Did Margaret meet someone in Paris? Did she have a fling? Did someone give her the brooch? A souvenir not just of a city, but a person? I'd like to think so. But she was already a married matron, strict and serious as her portrait attests. She stares straight ahead with that shell-shocked kind of look people have when they must sit still for minutes in front of the huge black box cameras of the time. Her austere black dress and tightly upswept hairdo don't hint at a carefree affair. For this severe woman, the four-leaf clover pin, barely visible on her high collar, seems almost frivolous. At least, it was suitably modest in size. Visiting Paris from Germany in 1884 was surely a great adventure, the journey of a lifetime, something to remember and tell your grandchildren about. We have proved this happened because Margaret Adler's granddaughter was Gertrude Müller, Susanne's mother, whom I knew well. A picture in my envelope also documents her wearing the brooch. Frau Müller, as I knew her, was like a grandmother to my children and like a substitute parent to me. Whenever we visited my ailing mother in Stuttgart, we stayed in the Müllers' big and beautiful home. My children played in her garden and we had dinners and Kaffeeklatsch together on the terrace. Frau Müller was high-spirited, generous and energetic, and she could be very funny. One night, she told us all about the trophies she won as a sharpshooter, a talent she discovered at the local Oktoberfest. Frau Müller's pictures is on my refrigerator next to her daughter's. I never saw Frau Müller wear the brooch. She had no interest in fashion or jewelry. The four-leaf clover didn't bring her any luck. But she wasn't one to rely on luck. She was a fighter, like her daughter. How do I hold up my piece of this line of German women? I do not wear the clover pin, except for a special recording, but I wrote the story about it. I've traced and documented the pin's origin. It has taken me to Paris at the turn of the century and back to the southern German town of my youth. I tried to be a good friend to Susanne before and after her death. I was not able to persuade her that life is worth another chance. Neither were the generations of adventurous women before her. It wasn't enough to keep her from using the seventh bullet. By writing these stories and paying tribute to the brooch in Susanne's memory, I want to put what happened in 2020, including the brooch and the bullets behind me. I put them back into the black lacquer box where the pin will rest together with the remaining 6 bullets. Susanne is gone, but her art survives.
And with that, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Cornelia Fay, founder of Constellation Press. Cornelia Fay arrived in New York City 30 years ago with 2 suitcases and a typewriter. Since then, she has tried to combine her background as an art historian. She holds an MA in art history and anthropology from the University of Tübingen, Germany, with her experiences traveling around the world for 7 years and her love for writing. In New York and San Diego, she was an art educator at museums such as the Jacques Marchais Museum for Tibetan Art in Staten Island, the San Diego Museum of Art, and the Mingei International Museum. For 10 years, she served as director of the School of the Arts and Arts Education at the Athenaeum of Music and Arts in La Jolla. She taught Western and non-Western art history at colleges and university in San Diego and continues to lecture with an emphasis on women artists and conceptual art. In 2016, she founded Constellation Press, an indie publishing company for genre fiction, to give a voice to independent writers and create a supportive community for local authors. Fay is an accomplished award-winning author. Her first novel, Spring of Tears, an art mystery set in France, won the San Diego Book Award, and incredibly, during the pandemic, she finished her 4th novel, Death of a Zen Master, a mystery set in a remote Zen monastery. Which received a 5-star rating from Reader's Favorite. Welcome, Cornelia.
Thank you for having me and for including Constellation Press. It's great to be here.
Of course, thank you so much. So first of all, what a beautiful way to honor your friend. I mean, it was truly moving, and you know, the piece does include a conversation about suicide, and you've been able to allow us to have this conversation to exist in a poetic and truly meaningful way. So I just want to say thank you for sharing this very private thing with us. It's beautifully done.
Thank you.
How did you decide that this was the way that you wanted to honor the life and death of your friend?
Actually, it started with this little brooch that she gave me, and that's the name of the piece, the brooch.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it was so important to her. She gave it to me, and she gave me the documentation, how it had been handed down through the generation of women to her, and then she wanted me to have it. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I kind of owed it to her and to this little piece of jewelry that it was so important to her that I had to sort of do something with it. And that was sort of the initial impulse to write this story and then record it, because it's all very visual. It's a little object, and her life is all about visual arts. And then I had these images of these generations of women, and I wanted to, include them.
Yes. It was so interesting too, that it really was so special to her that it was documented, that it was passed on. I wonder what that first generation that passed it on, I guess it was Margaret, is it? That passed it on from the first to the next generation. I wonder what it was in her that decided we need to document this. This is going to be, it really must have brought that person, that woman, good luck in some way that she felt so strongly about it. So it's nice to dream a little bit and imagine.
Yeah, and especially since she got it in Paris, at this, even before the turn of the century. So it was a easy thing to fantasize about and try to go back to that time and to that place.
Yeah, I love that you did that. That you imagined everything that was happening in the late 1800s and what she would have walked through and all of that. I mean, I find it just fascinating, especially living in I lived in Paris at one point in my life, and in travel, as you've done, I'm sure, I love walking down streets that I know that have been walked down by, generations and generations of people. It makes you have some perspective about who you are and your legacy and what you're leaving behind and what will happen when you're gone and who else is going to walk down these streets. The cobblestone streets always do that for me, coming from Mexico City, where that's something that I used to see a lot. I want to share this quote for you by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, which comes from the Book of Joy. And so Archbishop Desmond Tutu says, "We are meant to live in joy. This does not mean that life will be easy or painless. It means that we can turn our faces to the wind and accept that this is the storm we must pass through. We cannot succeed by denying what exists. The acceptance of reality is the only place from which change can begin." And so as we're talking about acceptance, I want to wrap our conversation around your friend Susanne, the theme of acceptance, and what she, if as much as you're willing to share, but what she was willing to accept and wasn't willing to accept. And that's something that you addressed in your story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I knew that Susanne had plans to end her life. And I have to add that she also had been sick for a long time. And so it was, talking about acceptance, it was very hard for me to accept that. And I really always felt, well, I should try to change her mind or in some way. And I couldn't. So that was hard. And then when she actually did it, that was even harder to accept. There was this finality, and also that feeling that nothing was really enough to keep her from doing that, that I wasn't enough of a friend in a way to keep her from ending her life. Yeah, so that was a little bit an impact or an impulse for me when I wrote this story, to kind of go through these little stages of acceptance. And it was really important for me to remember her as an artist and her legacy, because those are all things that live on. And they go beyond her physical life, and her art will continue, and we're actually going to have an exhibition of her work.
Yes, tell us about that.
So the Athenaeum in La Jolla has agreed to let me organize and curate an exhibition of her work. And it will take place from January 15th to March 5th next year, 2022. Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I saw a little taste of her work at the very end of your video, and I wanted more. So I'm sure all of us felt that way. Is there anything else that you can tell us about the 4 generations of women?
Well, I don't know very much about those first 2 generations, but I knew Susanne's mother very well. Yeah, she was almost like a grandmother to my kid, and a really, really lively person. Not an artist at all. Her husband was a doctor, and she was a registered nurse who always had that dream to become a doctor herself. But it was difficult at the time, and especially after the war, for women to actually do the medical, to enter the medical profession. But yeah, and as I mentioned in the story, she was a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
A great person, full of energy. and full of life.
Yes. And then Susanne being a boxer. I mean, these women are fighters. If there's one thing that seems to be happening here as a trend at Beyond Generations, that these women are fighters.
And especially, I mentioned it in the video that I found out she was a guerrilla girl.
Tell us about it for those that aren't aware.
Okay.
Please.
So it's an art group, a group of artists. It started in the 1980s in New York. They stayed anonymous, strictly anonymous, but they would do these actions and art events on behalf of women artists. And so they wore actual gorilla masks, like the apes. And so they would go stage these interventions at museums, and they'd ask questions like, do you have to be nude in order to be accepted as a woman into the Metropolitan Museum? Right. They would come up with statistics of how few women were actually exhibited in galleries and museums. And yeah, they got press and they got attention, and they really raised awareness about that fact of how women were there. And so Susanne, I was proud to find out, was one of them. And she even though I was her closest friend here, she kept that from me until after her death. So this is what they all agreed on. Yeah.
That's so cool. That is super cool. So I want to talk about Constellation Press, about the business of publishing. So for anyone that ever thought, oh, I'm going to write a book someday, what is the process? So take us through the process of, you've written your book, what comes next? How do you get published?
Yeah. So yeah, there's the 12 steps to publication, and I also teach classes about it at Writers Inc. But so in 2016, I founded Constellation Press together with two other women that started out with us. And I had written a couple of books and self-published them. And it was tough. And I made a lot of mistakes, just kind of muddling through the process, because you have to understand about, first of all, how to market your book, how to present it, how to go through several layers and several stages of editing, of proofreading, of formatting, how to do a professional cover. And so all these things is sort of found out the hard way. And then I decided, well, you know what? It would make sense to kind of found an indie publishing company, so we can help other authors maybe prevent some of the mistakes that we did, and also create a supportive network of authors.
We'll be putting all of your information and how to reach you in the chat, so everyone can access it right away. And I do have a question for you that related to our topic of the night. What is something that you do regularly that brings you joy and represents your true essence? Something that carries a lot of meaning and makes you feel like your truest self?
I like that question very much. And I was thinking about it, and I mean, actually a lot of things give me joy, from my first sip of coffee in the morning until watching the sunset go down in the evenings over the Pacific Ocean. And I'm so lucky to be here. For this conversations, I would like to focus on the joy of reading and writing. And this is something that was brought home to me literally during the pandemic, that if you have a good book, you're never alone. And you are able to find the voices of the wisest and smartest people in the world. Like you were inspired by the Book of Joy, by Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu. So for me, in the last year, one of the books that really inspired me was The Smile of the Buddha by Jacqueline Bass. And it's about the Eastern philosophy and Western art from Monet to today. So she looks at art and finds the Buddhist or the Eastern elements in it. So as a writer, I have to say that it gives me a lot of joy to write and to get into that flow of writing. And at that point, it feels as if everything I've ever experienced kind of flows into it and flows onto the page. And I'm just the vehicle, and I'm just in that moment. Well, it doesn't happen all the time, obviously.
Yeah.
A lot of time it's difficult and it's a struggle. But I also enjoy, and there's joy in that word itself, I enjoy to work with other writers. And either in a reader and critique group where we give feedback to each other, or publishing work by local, mostly local writers, and then to just bring out that best in them. And nothing, frankly, tops the joy of holding your book after it's been published and hold it in your hand for the very first time.
What a beautiful answer. Well done. I mean, you know, I think everybody has had that moment where like, I should write a book. This makes it feel a lot more accessible. So to anyone out there that is thinking about writing their book, there are resources for you. Please visit Constellation Press and learn more about their 12-step process to becoming a writer. And thank you, Cornelia. You've been so wonderful. Thank you for spending time with us today. I really appreciate you. And thank you for submitting this beautiful film for our enjoyment.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you again. Okay, on with the show. And now we will share a video submitted by two very talented choreographers. The Bridge is a vibrant new collaboration between artistic director John Malishok and Tristan Griffin, the artistic director of Tristan Griffin Dance Company in Kansas City, Missouri. The piece addresses the very polarized world we are living in and seeks to find a solution. Enjoy. Wow, that was beautiful. Well, now it is my pleasure to welcome the two choreographers responsible for this piece. John Malashok brings 35 years of experience in dance, theater, and film to his current endeavors as artistic director of Malashok Dance and the Malashok Dance School, during which time he has created and choreographed 70 works, dance, theater collaborations, theater and opera productions, and award-winning dance films. Under his leadership, Malashok Dance has grown to become one of California's premier dance companies, and his work has now been presented throughout the United States, Central America, Japan, Central Europe. Among his many accomplishments, Malashok has performed in benefit concerts with Mikhail Baryshnikov and garnered 4 Emmy Awards for his dance films, which have aired in over 30 affiliate PBS stations nationwide. A leader with the local and national dance communities, Malashok currently serves on the board of trustees for Dance USA and is proud to have taken the leadership role in conceiving, developing, and establishing Dance Place San Diego at Liberty Station. Tristan Griffin, a native of Kansas City, Missouri, graduated from Texas Christian University in 2014, receiving his BFA in ballet with an English minor. Following graduation, he joined the Garth Fagan Dance Company for 3 years. He has performed with the Metropolitan Opera House, the Lyric Opera House of Kansas City, Company E, and many others. Aside from dancing professionally, he has also taught classes for M's Spotlight, HALO, Helping Art Liberate Orphans Foundation, and Kansas City's Friends of Alvin Ailey for underprivileged children at several of Kansas City's community centers. While freelancing, Tristan discovered his passion for choreography and decided to start his own dance company, now known as the Tristan Griffin Dance Company. The company has been commissioned by the American Jazz Museum in Kansas City, the International Dance Festival in Philadelphia, Kansas City Ballet School, and WHCDC. He was selected as tenure for the Charlotte Street Foundation and Friends of Alvin Ailey Artist in Residency Program. John Malashok and Tristan Griffin, welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Susanna.
Thank you for having us.
Of course, of course. So I was lucky enough to watch the full production of this piece. And let me just say, wow, thank you for doing this. I have so many questions, okay? We just saw a little 10-minute snippet of it, but the whole piece is actually about 40 minutes long. The piece deals directly with this very polarized world that we're living in today. You may not have the answer, but your piece attempts to tackle the answer. What do you think how do we get to this moment of bridging very, very polarized ideas and beliefs? You know, art can do that, right? In a very sort of symbolic way, but Tristan, I'd like to ask you this question. You know, what did you learn last year that you think could be applied in a way that we can come together?
Well, I think John and I consensually agree that as a creator, as a choreographer, you're never really providing the answer. You're providing the question that should be asked in the room. And so when it came to creating the overarch narrative for the bridge, we did not want to say, this is how we come together. This is not the steps we take. It was more so showing the process of what could happen if we did come together, and propose the question of what does it take for us to come together.
One of the things that really moved me in the piece is the coming together and then the breaking apart and then coming together. Like there were these moments where you're like, okay, it's happening, and then you get sort of pulled back, and that's what seems to keep happening, is like we have some progress and then, you know, we keep getting pulled back, and then we have progress and we keep getting pulled back. So there was a lot of symbolism involved in it that really moved me. I want to share this quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu from the Book of Joy. He says, we are wired to be caring for the other and generous to one another. We shrivel when we are not able to interact. That is part of the reason why solitary confinement is such a horrendous punishment. We depend on the other in order for us to be fully who we are. This is the concept of Ubuntu. A person is a person through other persons. How did it feel to have one of your first in-person performances with a live audience?
Well, when you talk about the subject of joy, I mean, the joy of just being back in the studio with a group of dancers who've been deprived of it, mostly for, more than a year. It really caused kind of the explosion of movement that we created for this project. And it really did feel like an explosion in the best possible sense. And, as you were hinting earlier, through art, you don't have to play by the same rules as the real world. I mean, it is our real world. But we have a much greater chance to find a kind of unity, of coming together through art than we do through politics, quite honestly. Yeah. And that's a great relief to us.
So I'm an actor, I'm a theater person, and there are sacred rituals that happen before a performance in theater. Does that exist in dance? Do you all have sacred rituals?
People have personal rituals in dance. Everybody goes through their own stages of preparing for a performance. Whether it's the alone time in the mirror, putting makeup on, whether it's a certain routine of exercises you do as part of warming up. So there's definitely a sense of ritual to get ready for performance. Tristan, I don't know if your experience is different with this.
I know that for me, I like, especially in a piece like this where the narrative is so strong, I don't believe in faking. When you're faking, you're lying. And I don't want to lie to anyone. I try to be honest, but when it comes to preparing to really make the narrative true, you have to really make the ensemble cohesive. And so before each performance for the bridge specifically, we came together and just had a moment, if it was talking about the piece or just joking around, or if it was just literally silence and just taking inhales and exhales together, but making sure that we're cohesive as a unit, so that when it came to demonstrating the narrative, it actually was genuine and authentic versus artificial and just us performing steps. It was really about staying true to the narrative and the storytelling.
I have a personal question for you all about your personal sacred rituals. What is something that you do regularly that brings you joy, something that carries a lot of meaning for you and makes you feel like your truest self?
For me, one of those things is travel and being in nature, oftentimes combined together. But that sense of gaining a bigger perspective, the sort of letting go of the daily things that weigh on us, being somewhere else, interacting with people, probably, for the first and only time. There's something in that for me is really, really joyful. And I think, when I do have a chance to really spend time out in nature, that's probably when I feel most like myself.
Yeah, I'm the same. Nature's really, really important to me too. It brings me back to just to be alone with my own mind, my own thoughts. Tristan, can I ask you the same question?
Absolutely, I would love to answer. For me, I'm really a happy person. Like I have a habit of reading. Like that's what I minored in at TCU. I minored in English, so I'm really about studying literature and the Shakespeare's and all that. And then also cooking. I'm really passionate about cooking and just like diving into food and different tastes. And John showed me the whole food culture cuisine in San Diego, just some of the best food.
You're welcome.
Right. Because let me tell you, it was like, I literally want to go back for the food. But no, it's like one of those things that for me takes my mind off of dance, but still relative to art, because I think food cuisine and literature is a form of art, or forms of art.
Oh, Tristan, speaking your language, Susanna.
Yeah, right. I know.
Yes.
I know. yeah, the culinary world here in San Diego is exceptional. It really is
Yeah.
something to be proud of. And actually, you should stick around because one of our other presenters is the San Diego Shakespeare Society, and they will be having, should I tell you? It's kind of a
Yes,
secret.
please.
Stick around. It's
Okay,
gonna get
okay.
good, I promise.
And if I can say one last thing, it's sort of related to the generation theme. I think it was such a growing experience, both for me and for Tristan, working side by side on the creation of something, being, so much from different generations, and how exciting that was, how motivating for both of us it was.
Absolutely.
There's no way this work would have happened if either of us was trying to create it alone.
Nope.
Right.
Definitely not.
Right. I mean, there's something really beautiful about that. And I think that's what we're really trying to get to, is that what are we learning from past generations, from the people generations away from us, either generations older or generations younger. I'm learning
Absolutely.
a lot from this new young generation. I think about my children and I think about what they're going to inherit in that world. But I do see hope. I think there is a place for cautious optimism. We're not Pollyannas here. We know the state of the world, but at the same time, you have to live in hope. You have to. That's the only way to change. And also you have to live in acceptance. Like, this is the current situation that we're living in. Now, how do we address it? If we're living in a fake world of, imaginary truths and all these things, you can't even address the problem. How do you get there, right? So I think you all have taken a great first step in that. I so appreciate this piece, and it needs to be seen a lot and often. So thank you again for all the wonderful work you do. I can't wait to meet you, Tristan, in person, and John, you too. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know. I look forward to seeing you again too.
Thank you, guys. So thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Susanna.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Our next video comes from our friends at the San Diego Shakespeare Society. When we think about the generations of writers who have contributed to the English language, there is no better example than William Shakespeare's canon of plays, sonnets, and poems. He has been credited by the Oxford English Dictionary with introducing thousands of words to the English language. His works continue to be studied and produced to this day. Why is that? Let's find out. Please enjoy.
Hi, my name is Tom Hain, and I would like to talk to you about the San Diego Shakespeare Society. The Society has been in existence for over 20 years, and it was formed with the idea of promoting the genius of Shakespeare. We hope that by understanding Shakespeare's works, we can begin to reflect on our own humanity. The Society has a myriad of activities to accomplish this mission. Monthly readings of Shakespeare's plays, both in Coronado and in Escondido. They have panel discussions, lectures, acting classes. We sponsor a student festival every April, where we invite students from elementary school through high school to perform scenes from Shakespeare. We have mock trials. We discuss various issues at all times during the year, during fundraising activities, celebrations. So we invite you to check us out at San Diego ShakespeareSociety.org. Join us and share the joy of Shakespeare. So why do we still perform Shakespeare, write about Shakespeare, read about him for over 400 years after his death? I think that one of the main reasons is his willingness to explore all aspects of the human condition. Themes such as love and hate, war and peace, grief and joy, life and death are interwoven in all of his plays and sonnets. For example, in one of his more famous speeches, he poses the question, are we at the end of life destined to be alone, without any semblance of our humanity left? Listen to how he frames the question in the 7 Ages of Man speech from his play As You Like It. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first the infant mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school, and then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow, and then the soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice and fair round belly with good capon line, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his manly voice turning again towards childish trebles, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history is second childlessness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. So is the end of life. Loneliness and mere oblivion. Shakespeare answers with a resounding no. He tells us that we will never be alone as long as we have love. Love will be with us always, from generation to generation, transcending even death. Hear his majestic way describing this eternal nature of love in Sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love when it alters, when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love is not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle compass comes. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. This theme of love over death is also talked about in Shakespeare's Sonnet 73. In this sonnet, Shakespeare allows us to overhear a conversation between aged lovers at the end of life, who find that growing old together strengthens their bond of love and carries them through the tragedy of death. Sonnet 73. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves are none or few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs where late the sweet birds sang. In me thou seest the twilight of such day, as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self, which seals up all in rest. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire, that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. Shakespeare, then, has answered the emptiness and despair of death with the power of love to sustain us, to be with us today, tomorrow, forever, even to the edge of doom.
And now I'm very happy to welcome Mr. John Tesmer, Artistic Director of the San Diego Shakespeare Society, along with its past board president, Tom Hain. John Tesmer is a professional actor and director who holds a BA from Yale and an MFA in acting from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He spent 6 seasons with the Colorado Shakespeare Festival between graduate school and moving back to his hometown of San Diego in 2001. John co-founded the La Jolla Theater Ensemble in 2010 and is the company's producing artistic director. He serves on the board of directors of the San Diego Shakespeare Society, for which he has been the artistic director since 2016. John has performed regionally with the Eugene O'Neill Foundation, Laguna Playhouse, Monomoy Theater on Cape Cod, Idaho Rep, and the Western Stage, and locally with Diversionary Theater, Intrepid Theater Company, Lamb's Players, New Village Arts, North Coast Rep, Moolelo Performing Arts Company, Playwrights Project, New Fortune Theater Company, with which he is an associate artist, and many others. He has taught for the University of Colorado and the Old Globe Theater, acted in 2/3 of the Shakespearean canon, and works for the La Jolla Music Society as an artist liaison. Tom Hain has been involved with Shakespeare and the performing arts for about 30 years. Directing credits include Tartuffe, Romeo and Juliet, King Lear, Hamlet, Macbeth, Hedda Gabler, You Can't Take It With You, Bury the Dead, Rumors, Dearly Departed, a tribute for Burt Bacharach, and his acting credits include King Lear, Macbeth, Much Ado About Nothing, Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest, and Hamlet. Hain has received formal training in directing from the Berkeley Rep and from Cambridge University in the UK, and has also trained with the Old Globe's Jonathan McMurtry, Dakin Matthews, and Brendan Fox, and with the San Diego Reps Todd Salovey and Sam Woodhouse. He is a graduate of the British American Drama Academy Midsummer Oxford program in 2010, and professionally, he is a retired federal prosecutor and currently a lawyer in private practice specializing in criminal and immigration law. Big welcome to you both.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Hi. Great to be here.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this. So full disclosure, I used to be a big Shakespeare buff. I was a founding member of the San Diego Shakespeare Society a long time ago, and I've performed for Celebrity Sonnets in the past. And so, it used to be a really big part of my life, and I just want to share how excited I am to be spending some time with you both and talking, getting to hear the words of the bard again. And so I want to start off by reading this quote from the Book of Joy to kind of bring it all together a little bit. It says, according to the Book of Joy, it says, the human drama is often a comedy and laughter is the saving grace. This ability to laugh allows us to accept life as it is, broken and imperfect, even as we aspire for a better world. And it made me think of, Shakespeare's keen ability to tell stories that tap into our most raw human traits, both good and bad. Who are those characters that just really have, for you, were the most raw, the most real?
I think without a doubt, it has to be Macbeth. This is a character that starts as a hero of his country, and slowly devolves into an ambitious, paranoid person that we see disintegrate right before our eyes, but in the most poetic way that I've ever read. It's just overwhelming, the images that are presented, not only because of the poetry, but also because of the frenetic pace of the play. Shakespeare does not allow you to disengage at any moment during the play, all the way to the very end of the play. I mean, there's full of surprises, but it's just, for me, it's just an amazing play, an amazing character.
I still adore the character of Hamlet. He's also tortured in a different sort of way. And the action of Hamlet, in a way, it's a simple revenge play. It's against the backdrop of believing that his uncle has murdered his father and that he needs to avenge that, to kind of right the universe. And he can't do it. I mean, it's not really in his nature to be this. And he is just, the character is drawn so magnificently, so three-dimensionally, maybe even more than three-dimensionally, if that's possible. Yeah. I mean, Shakespeare, as we just talked about, was so inventive, and that happens as language evolves, and we just need to be responsive to it.
Yeah.
Now,
so you're a person that embraces new idioms and new words that have bubbled up in current times.
Yeah, I think it just adds to the richness.
I think that the evolution of language is going to take care of itself. As long as, to me, as long as the language connects to emotion and allows us to understand our emotion through poetry, then it's fine. You know, Shakespeare, I'm sure in his time he was on the cutting edge of language, and you know, people would look at him, and I think one of the great things about him is that he allowed his imagination, and therefore the imagination of everyone that followed him, to just open to all kinds of images that reflect our emotions.
You know, what's really important is being able to communicate and to be completely present. And I think that his characters do that. You know, they force you to sort of lean in and listen to that beautiful language and just savor it. I want to talk about traditions in theater. It was illegal for women and girls to perform in theater. And now it's evolved to where we now see like gender neutral casting and colorblind casting around the world. When I was studying at the Royal National Theatre in London, I remember it was the first time I had ever seen colorblind casting.
Yeah.
And it just blew my mind. I had no idea you could even do that. You know, representation matters. And when you see a person that looks like you and acts like you on stage performing things that were supposed to be, you know, historically, you know, English characters, it sort of makes you think, oh, okay, this is not about that. It's about the human story behind it. And that's what matters. And so what I love that you all do is the Student Shakespeare Festival, where you get all these wonderful youths from every type of background playing all these different characters, and they get to see themselves represented on stage. And I just think that's so wonderful. Absolutely. And it's about the humanity, as Tom said at the beginning of the interview. It's about the humanity of the characters, and that's not, of course, limited to England or Europe from a particular place and time and century. And so these characters are accessible to everyone, every gender, every race, every age. And that's why Shakespeare is produced all over the world. Yeah. I want to shift gears to ask you, what is your sacred ritual? What is the thing that you do regularly, that makes you feel like your truest self? What is your sacred ritual?
For me, it involves being in a law practice that right now is centered on immigration. And last 2 or 3 years, I was a prosecutor for, I don't know, 30 years with the federal government. So I was on the other side of trying to deport people from the United States. And then now I'm on the side of trying to find ways for people to stay here. And there's been maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 occasions where people that are really truly in desperate situations have come to our office, and I was able to use, legal stuff and personal connections, and was able to bring them into the United States. And now they're in here, they're reunited with their families, and it's really the coolest thing that I've ever been involved in. It's the coolest legal thing, the best way to use a law degree that I could possibly think of. And so that was my sacred ritual, is to find cases more in that area, and to try to promote that.
And it's making you feel like your truest self.
It does. It really makes you feel, that it's, I don't know what term you would use, Christian or human or, Shakespearean.
Compassionate.
Compassionate. Yeah. And
I think
so
actors are some of the most compassionate people in the world. We're tasked with putting ourselves in people's shoes every day and trying to experience their grief and their joy and everything in between.
Yeah.
So, beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
That's amazing, Tom, and that you just shared that, Susanna, because I was just reflecting as you were sharing the evolution of your practice, Tom. And I thought when I was a senior in college, thought very seriously about becoming a lawyer. So what did I do instead? I became an actor, which has sent me on an incredible process of again, being in the moment. So it's really interesting to look at the trajectory. But I wasn't convinced that that's what I wanted to do for my whole life. And yet I got on the path, and I've stuck on it. And one critical juncture along the way was deciding to go to graduate school, which not every actor needs to do, but it made sense for me. I was coming from an academic background. I'd studied acting, but I hadn't really kind of delved into the meat and potatoes of it. So it made sense for me to do that. And I did. And you come out the other side. Anyway, it's a difficult path, but I had confidence. I had a little bit of wisdom in my 20s that no matter what happened to me, by going on the process of going to graduate school and getting my Master of Fine Arts, that it was going to make me a better person. And that has everything to do with what you were talking about, Susanna, of actors being the most compassionate people, highly intelligent, curious, and it is our job to put ourselves in other people's minds and hearts and become them, but also to have sympathy for them, have empathy for them. And so I would say that acting itself is a sacred ritual for me. And not only that personally, but to work with others on a project who are also doing that. And of course, we're all unique and have different perspectives, and that's wonderful, but we're like-minded in the pursuit of a common goal, to tell stories for an audience.
Another piece just to add to what you were saying is that we, as a cast, you are colleagues with people that are older, way older than you, way younger than you, and they become, it becomes like a brother and sisterhood. You become family. And so there's something about that where in a normal scenario, if you're the older person, you have a very different relationship with just like a person that you meet, on the street, or someone else's son or daughter or whatever, you're like, oh, you're cute, but when you're on stage, you're equals, right? Because you're both working just as hard, you're both going to the same rehearsals, you're being directed, you're both vulnerable, you're both trying to tell the same story, and you're kind of on the same path. So some of my greatest friends are from very, very divergent generations, and I've always been really open. I think theater taught me that, being very open to being able to connect on a human level with almost anybody from any background, and that's why compassion really plays into being able to be a good actor. Is you're able to just, okay, what's the humanity in you? Start there. Let's start there. So in the interest of time, I want to get into our little challenge here. So I gave you a tiny bit of warning, but I think that one of the best ways to honor Mr. William Shakespeare is to get into what he was really good at, which was insults. So I think that we should take turns, just each person giving out our best insult, and then we are going to have the audience vote who gave the better insults. How do you feel about that? Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah. What? Or are you? So we're going to use the thing that you gave us, or can we use the?
Let's start one round, just one round, with like our favorite Shakespeare insult that actually exists, and then we're going to share this little Shakespeare insult making kit with you all. And so we're just going to pull out of there, and you can create your own insults. So first, let's do our first round, starting with your favorite Shakespeare insult. Tom,
Well,
you go first.
I think that of all the people in the world, John is a trunk of humors, a bolting hunch of beastliness. He's a swollen parcel of dropsies, a huge bombard of sack, a stuffed cloak bag of guts, a roasted manna tree ox with pudding in his belly, a reverend vice, a gray iniquity, a father of ruffians, and a vanity in years. That's what I think of John.
Well, Tom, I love you, but you are a knave, a rascal, an eater of broken meats, a base, proud, shallow, beggarly, three-suited, 100-pound, filthy, worsted stocking knave, a lily-livered, action-taking knave, a whoreson, glass-gazing, super-serviceable, finical rogue, one-trunk inheriting slave, one that wouldst be a bawd. In way of good service and art, nothing but the composition of a knave, a beggar, a coward, pander, and the son of an heir and a mongrel bitch.
Susanna, are you going to let him say that to me? I don't understand.
Well, to begin, thou art both damned and luxurious mountain goats.
Really?
Thou art the rankest compound of villainous smell that ever offended nostril, and the most cowards and infinite and endless liars, hourly promise breakers, and the owner of no one good quality.
Oh
my God. Hourly promise breakers? I don't think that's an accurate description of
what you do it every 10 minutes?
Your Honor, I am not a promise breaker.
Okay, Shakespeare insult kit time. Grab your insult kit. You're going to pull one word from column 1, one word from column 2, and one word from column 3, and give me the best you got.
Oh, Tom, you craven, common kissing canker blossom.
John, you are a goatish, fly-bitten fusterian. I don't know what.
I resemble that remark. Maybe.
Okay. I've got 2 insults for you.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right,
Tom.
lay it on us.
Tom,
Yes.
you are a bootless, beetle-headed bladder.
Oh my God.
I like the
my-
alliteration. Well done.
John, you are a gleeking, elf-skinned dewberry.
I
All
hope-
right, you guys have to vote. You guys have to vote.
Oh my God.
Who was the better at insulting? And the final thing I can say is that I do desire that we may be better strangers.
That's wonderful.
Listen, thank you both for joining us. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope that we do not become strangers. I hope that we spend a lot of good time together now that the theaters are starting to slowly open back up. I can't wait to see you both on stage and in the audience and enjoy one another. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your day, and we're going to enjoy the rest of the night.
Well, that is the end of the first half of our evening. In just 1 minute, we will invite you to sit back and enjoy the premiere of our feature film. Please stick around afterwards for an incredible contemporary dance performance by the PGK Dance Project and their partners, and an immersive operatic performance by Project Blank about 2 tragic young lovers. And now, it is with great pleasure that we premiere our feature film, Part 2 of The History of Joy, Generations and Sacred Rituals.
Did you know it is scientifically impossible to blow bubbles and remain angry? Imagine how many arguments you could avoid just by getting some bubbles at the Dollar Tree. Same thing goes for whistling, skipping, and splashing. Go ahead, try and put on your main face. Splash in a bath. Whistle right before your next Zoom meet. See if you're still sad. You're welcome. Now come on. The history of joy is right through this store, and it really wants to know you. There are 8 pillars holding up this house, and today we lean on 2. So put on your acceptance apron and turn up your humor headphones, and let's just see what joy can do. Wait! Knock, knock. Venice. When is this door going to open? Not funny? Geez, you really do need to be here. Come on!
Jack and Jill went up the hill to come and see my show. Jack was mad cause I'm older than his dad, and
Dad, I only have a short amount of time between meetings, so let's make this quick.
It's Sunday, Tommy. Even Jesus stopped to talk to his father from time to time. You telling me you're busier than Jesus?
Jesus didn't have a mortgage and HOA fees. What is this? What are we doing here with the hat and sunglasses?
I'll have you know, before you came up, I was working too.
I'm looking crazy? Is that why you dragged me here, to show me how senile looks on you?
No, smart Alec. I have an upcoming show that I have to rehearse for.
Are you going to tell me what's going on, or am I going to have to explain to Ezra why I had his sweet old grandfather committed?
I am an upcoming famous rapper. Now deal with it.
Stop playing, Dad. Really, I have to get going soon. What did you need?
I've had 8 shows already. I am about to do a West Coast tour.
You're 75. You're not a rapper, Dad.
I have what the kids like to call bars.
You are not a famous rapper, Dad. You are Samuel Connell, retired high school English teacher and grandfather, who is obviously not getting enough activities at the senior center I donate to.
My last YouTube video got over 80,000 attaboys.
Likes.
I got over 2,000 buddies on FaceTime.
Friends, and it's Facebook. FaceTime. Never mind. You're not a rapper, Dad.
Would you stop criticizing and listen? You only pick your head up off that phone long enough to half listen to someone, and then you give a quarter-hearted reply. Now, that is not how I raised you.
Okay, Pop. I'm listening. You are a famous rapper. Tons of fans and women throwing their depends at you. What's your rap name? MCAARP? I'm gonna look you up.
I go by the moniker Sam Satellite, broadcasting good times and good vibes. You dig?
Dad, please don't you dig me. You want me to take you seriously, you have to speak only in old man from now on. Holy shit.
Told you.
How in the world did you get all these followers? These are bots, right?
I'm not sure what a bot is. I know those are bangers right there.
Dad, speak in English.
Look, Thomas. Fine, I'll cut to the chase. I know you got to get back to making the next great self-driving blender.
I told you so many times, that's not the type of engineering. What do you want, old man?
Answer me this. Is it really such a chore to spend a Sunday afternoon with your father?
Now you want to spend time with me? What about when I was a kid and I actually needed you?
I was there. You were too busy with your geek friends to notice me.
Great way to ask me for something, Pop. Call me a geek? You never showed an interest in what I was doing.
Son, I couldn't begin to understand the things you were getting into, and you didn't have the patience to explain it to me. It was all so weird. The outfits, the experiments. Oh, good Lord, you even made saying grace at the dinner table awkward.
How'd you figure that?
You did it in Elvish, Tommy.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. We all have phases, I guess. But my made-up world was just as insane as all the Shakespeare in the Park you dragged us.
You loved that! You told me so!
I was faking it. Snuck a book and a small flashlight with me every time. You were so enthralled, you barely even noticed.
No, you liked it.
Look, I gotta go, so...
I need money.
I know it. How much?
About 5,000 for my music video. Oh, I am gonna set fire to it. No. It's gonna be a wildfire. No. Lit. Yes, that's what they say. That's it, lit. It is definitely good rapping literature. Wait, is that a no?
I barely like rap as it is. And I like that a whole lot more than I like you. Why in the hell would I back a 75-year-old's rap career?
Because it makes me happy. And I know you don't like me all the time, but we've still got something. We're family, Tommy. You don't just throw that away, right? Tommy? Thomas.
What?
You do still love me, right? I wasn't that bad of a father.
I'm not throwing my money away on your rap career.
But you had more than enough.
That's beside the point. Just because I have it doesn't mean I'm going to set a match to it.
Well, you wouldn't be spending it on rap. You'd be spending it on me. Besides, you owe me.
For what?
Well, I hoped it wouldn't come to this. But I knew I was dealing with a numbers cruncher, so I decided to do a little number crunching of my own.
What in the world is...
This, my doughy friend, is a list of everything I paid for in raising you, from diapers to the Dodge Intrepid I bought just before you went away to college.
Unbelievable.
Well, you better believe it, buddy. Now, this here is when you stuck your peanut butter sandwich in my VCR, and this here is the hospital bill. Right there it is. The hospital bill for when you decided to test how many Pop Rocks you could fit up your tiny nose.
You can't charge me for that, Dad. We are family. It was your job to raise me.
Well, what's your job now? Don't I deserve to be taken care of? You want a sandwich? I have turkey and cheese on wheat.
I don't eat cheese.
I know. That's why yours doesn't have any. I even cut it diagonally.
You remember that?
Yep.
You put the cilantro in this.
Yep.
I was like that.
Yep. People enjoy what I do, you know. I give them a little rap singing and hit them with a few dance steps for my hip-hop class down at the Y. A bit of the old Sam Satellite razzmatazz.
Fun fact, razzmatazz and rap don't belong in the same sentence. Not even in the same book.
I'm worried about you.
Me? I'm not the one wasting my time on a pipe dream.
How can it be a waste if it's something I dream about? Wouldn't the waste be not dreaming at all?
Still.
You used to love the funny poems I'd write for you.
I was a kid, didn't know any better.
Remember the earthworm and the lactose intolerant queen?
Yeah. I'm Benny the recovering disco dinosaur. You were so strange.
Says the man I had to talk out of dressing like a Klingon for prom. Look, I'm the same guy I always was. I'm just putting my poems to music and expanding my audience since my son wants nothing to do with me or joy.
I have joy.
Prove it. Rhyme with me.
You're joking.
I most certainly am not. Do something fun just for no other reason than it's just fun.
This is what I'm missing my meeting for.
Yes, this is what's important. There are two things in a man's life of value: his work and his time. One is infinite. The other is finite. Now the question is what's on your phone how you really want to spend what little time we have left? Sam Satellite broadcasting good times. Tommy Boy here is going to engineer some rhymes. Sam Satellite broadcasting good times. Tommy Boy here is going to engineer some rhymes.
My dad's gone crazy. Thinks he's LL Old J. Asked me for some money when he knows there's no way.
My son can't help that I'm a whole lot of cool, sad when the librarians are your only friends in school.
I know you're out of money, so let me leave a tip. You try to break dance on stage, you're gonna break a hip.
All that malarkey falling from your lips, I just bought a can of whoop-ass gonna make you take a sip.
Well, I'm gonna... All right, that was funny. Got me on that one. I admit, you're decent at this. Jay-Z has nothing to worry about, but you're okay.
Who makes the rules for us seasoned folks anyway? I just want to keep doing the things that get me excited to do them.
That includes making a fool of yourself on stage.
Oh, now that's the best kind of happy. Young enough to make a fool of yourself and old enough not to care. You know that picture, the one you posted of you and Ezra, where you were dressed up like a princess and he was a knight that was going to save you. That right there. Young enough to be a fool.
Old enough not to care.
Joy. Don't make the same mistakes I made. You keep on being Ezra's hero for as long as he wants you to be. I gave up trying to get to know you way too soon.
All right, Dad. I have to start a tally on how much I'm spending on my son.
Oh, it pays off. I tell you, I play the long game.
When do you need this money by?
Soon. But I'll do you a favor. You agreed to appear in my music video, just hanging out and enjoying the music, and I'll forget about the money you owe me and the vig on it.
Dad, I don't think you want me in your video.
Sure I do. Of course I do, Thomas. I miss you. I miss my boy. I don't know how many more Sundays I have left on this planet, but well, I know I want you and your family around for as many of them as I'm allowed, if that's all right with you.
Why didn't you just say that?
I just did.
How about I just give you the money? I don't think I'm ready for a video.
It's too late. Your cameo in my rap video is how I want to get paid.
You never needed the money, did you?
No, of course not. But I knew you wouldn't stay as long if I just told you I wanted to hang out with my son on the weekend.
You are a crafty geezer, I'll give you that. When's this video? See if I have any openings in my schedule.
Funny, you should ask.
All right, Sound Satellite, you ready? Roll sound and action.
Yeah, it's your rap godfather, Sam Satellite here, bringing you good times and good vibes. Joy ain't over till you say it is. You dig? Don't adjust your dial. What you see is real, bringing you fresh rap. I'm a meal on wheels, wearing Adidas orthopedics. Ladies, wear your heels. Just call me bananas. I got so much appeal. Yo, it's strange seeing me on stage, wishing you be this fly when you're my age. If you got headphones or hearing aid, don't need your permission to come out and play. Jack and Jill went up the hill to come and see my show. Jack was mad cause I'm older than his dad, and Jill didn't want him no more. Don't you ever count me out. Age is just a number, and I just forgot how to count. Joy in the morning, joy in the evening, joy at supper time. Broadcasting good times and good vibes at Sam Satellite. Break it down. Don't count us old folks out. You know, snow on the rooftop generally means fire in the furnace. After your visit to the nursing home, we'll crank up the system when we're alone. Live long enough, you get lots of fans and groupies. Live too long and you'll meet my social security. Can't show me nothing that I haven't seen. While your granddad's napping, I'm living the dream. I'm a grandpa rapping, taking over the scene. I'm what happens when you dare to believe. Jack be nimble and Jack be quick. Jack disappeared like a magic trick. After he picked this old man to pick a fight, he never realized that my dentures could bite. Don't you ever count me out. Age is just a number, and I just forgot how to count. Joy in the morning, joy in the evening, joy at supper time. Broadcasting good vibes and good times at Sam's Satellite. Pete, my DJ, DJ Token, aka Lord of the Beats. That's a razzmatazz. Don't you ever count me out. Age is just a number, and I just forgot how to count. Joy in the morning, joy in the evening, joy at supper time. Broadcasting good times and good vibes at Sam's Satellite. Don't you ever count me out. Age is just a number, and I just forgot how to count.
I like Sundays.
Me too. Enjoy at supper time. Broadcasting good vibes and good times at Sam's Satellite. Pete, my DJ, DJ Token, aka
Take a seat.
So what did she tell you? Did she say it was all my fault? I bet she said it was all my fault, didn't she?
Hello, officer. We are here to report a theft and pre-murder and possible child abandonment.
Look, she is loca. Don't believe a word she says.
I just tried to give my daughter a simple driving lesson. And now I must literally sit on my hands so that I don't do anything that will land me in here.
All it was supposed to be was a simple lesson to teach me how to drive. Well, I basically know how to drive anyway. I'm just what they call a late bloomer.
Huh.
My uncle just got me the cutest habanero orange VW bug.
My idiota brother buys my irresponsible daughter Olivia a car for her 18th birthday. Now, a girl with no job, insurance, nor life plans past the summer has a nicer vehicle than me. Does he think to get his sister who's struggling to make ends meet, taking care of 3 kids by herself, a new vehicle? No. You know what he got me for my last birthday? An Amazon gift card with $17.38 left on it from whatever he bought.
My mom's just jealous she drives that ugly green Prius. That's why she didn't want to teach me.
I have my Prius. I love my Prius. It is the color of my father's eyes. And I think of him every time I get in it. Bought it myself. And ever since, the kids have not had one French fry or mazapan inside of it.
I told her if she didn't teach me how to drive, well, I basically know how to drive anyway, but if she didn't teach me how to drive better, I was gonna live with her forever. So, next thing I know, we're in her Prius and I'm finally behind the wheel.
First of all, how are you going to operate a 3,000-pound vehicle when you can't even find the seatbelt?
She's yelling at me to put on a stupid seatbelt, which I couldn't find at first because I'm totally used to being on the right side of me. Then she's screaming, 10 and 2, 10 and 2.
10 and 2. Simple. 10 and 2.
I'm like, that's when they had the Fred Flintstone cars back in her day that you push with your feet.
Now they tell us to put your hands towards the 9 and 3 because of airbags.
Did you know they got rid of 10 and 2? They couldn't tell anybody? They're just gonna let everyone over 30 drive dangerously? Que pendejos.
Then she called me an airbag, so I left the car.
It took us 30 minutes just to leave the driveway.
I checked my mirror, hair, and makeup, and made sure my phone was charging and that I had no important text messages or anything like that. Okay, I'm getting to it. I tried to do a quick Insta story because I wanted to be safe and not Insta and drive, but my mom was like totally pouting and complaining, so that was a fail.
By the time we do get on the road, she is driving 10 miles per hour and screaming like we are a Magic Mountain.
I was like, ah! I felt like I was going 40 on a residential street.
She was so slow. I swear, as she was driving, I got out of the car, tied my shoes lightly, jogged, and caught up to her before she got to the stop sign.
I picked up the speed, and things were cool for like a second.
Then she hears her phone buzz, and she swerves to pull over to check it.
I got an urgent text message about a homework assignment. We were downtown at this point.
She doesn't even know who the text is from or what it is about, but she had to stop.
And so, being the responsible young lady that I am, I pulled over carefully and handled my business.
Took my beautiful, almost new Prius and slammed it against the sidewalk.
I scraped her stupid plastic hubcaps a little on the curb. Un poquito. Scream. Just a little.
It sounded like eagle claws scraping against a tin roof.
So by the time I'm done, Mom is holding her head like this is the end of the world. And I look up and two cars totally boxed me in. I had to go back and forth, inch by inch, so that I could wedge us out. And I may have tapped the back of that Jaguar's bumper maybe twice, if that.
Then rammed the Jaguar in front of us 4 times. She couldn't hit a Geo Metro, a Kia.
Again, she goes into another fit and makes me leave a note on the windshield.
She watches CSI with me. She knows you have cameras everywhere.
I'm like, what if he's an American psycho, serial axe murderer, stalker, pervert guy, and we just left him all of our information? Mom is so reckless. Ugh!
I just kept thinking to myself, get her driving, get her out of the house. I repeated it in my head like Padre Nuestro.
Anyway, we're driving and we come to a stop. Mom is mad for some reason. And do you know who I see waiting at the crosswalk? But Franklin Thomas. Do you know who that is? He's won like a bunch of football awards or something. Super high. I'm already looking cute, but I don't want him to see me rocking a scratched up Prius. So I casually tell my mom to jump on my lap and switch seats with me before the light turns. So then she looks in their direction and she freaks out because Franklin's dad is Mom's boss and she called out deathly sick so she can teach me driving and get her nails did. The light turns green, Mom yells, "Doug!" and she reclines her seat all the way back. I recline my seat all the way back as well, but there are cars honking, rudely, I might add. Then Mom yells, "Go!" So I step on the gas and go. Then Mom yells, seat up, then I yell, "Well, make up your mind."
I'm sorry, officer. I have to tell you the whole story. You know, because of the whole pre-murder child abandonment thing. I'm not saying that it will, but if it does happen, I need the judge to see she left me no choice.
And that's when I tap, barely, an itsy bitsy bit, the back of the school bus. But can you see how it wasn't my fault? I mean, like, why would they give the driver's seat the ability to recline all the way back if they didn't want you to do that?
I think she has possessed her. Oh, did I tell you she murdered some poor innocent ducks?
Right, the duck. Okay, so we're both screaming. I'm trying to get us out of there, but suddenly there's a lot of traffic that just Harry Pottered in from like nowhere. Mom is yelling, "Park, just park!" But because my brain is like fried at this point, all I hear is, "Park, park, park!" I thought maybe someone's chasing us for scaring the handy-capable kids on the bus. I don't know. So I safely drive onto the grass and into the park. And to my credit, I avoided the picnic area and people doing yoga.
However, there may have been some ducks that did not survive.
But nobody likes the subset of storybooks anyway.
I thought I was going like 15. Mom said I was going like 40. Oh well.
It was probably a mama duck trying to get back to her babies after working all day. And this is the thing she got. Una pata asesinada por un Prius en el parque. When you find my car, officer, make sure she gets a good funeral. She deserves it.
Look at your face right now.
I should hook you up with my mom. You both are so impatient and have serious RBF. Are you single, officer?
I can see by the shock in your face, you understand my frustration. Thank you for listening to me rant. You know, I'm a good judge of character and you're a decent man. You probably have kids of your own. But, no ring, eh?
Did she tell you I saved the proposal? Bet I didn't get any credit for that. Stopped about 100 feet from them.
Excellent breaking on my part, if I might add.
Imagine dying right when you're about to propose.
There was this guy in a tuxedo coming in on a horse. He kind of looked like Franklin. I scared the horse a bit, but I did not hit him. I basically saved love. The girl he was with was not hot at all, though, but it was sweet, you know. Real romantic.
It reminded me of my late husband. He was so sweet.
Mom says Dad was like that. Un romántico. I know you don't care, but I miss him, you know?
Every Sunday without fail, he would drive to my favorite sweet shop and buy me a small assortment of my favorite chocolates. Then later, if we weren't too tired, he'd suggest we get the kids to bed early to go to our room to exercise off the sweets.
Long story short,
After the proposal, Mom suddenly yelled at me to give her the keys. I said, how am I ever supposed to learn if you don't ever teach me the correct way? Legitimate question, right? She loses it again and comes around the other side to pull me out. She raised me to not be a quitter, so I locked the doors.
I checked my mirror, hair, and makeup, checked any important posts that I may have missed, put it in gear, and drove
Through the park and to the street. I know that was kind of mean, but you should have heard all the things she was calling me, her own daughter. So I thought maybe she needed to run it off a bit. I know exercise always helps me feel better.
Once we got back to the street and I
Finally let her in, and she wouldn't say a word to me except for home. Rude.
By the time I get in, I am thinking of possible alibis for when her body goes missing later tonight.
It's like, do a person a favor, geez.
This day reminded me of how mad my mother used to get with me. My dad worked 2 jobs, so my mother had to teach me how to drive. And guess how many ducks were killed or handicapped buses hit in my lesson? 0.
We're almost home, but we're driving near the west side, and Mom tells me to turn left, and we're in like this old beat-up neighborhood. She tells me to stop, and we're in front of this
Old yellow house with white trim. It was cute, but the neighborhood was so not.
So we are driving, and all of a sudden we are in front of my mother's house. I have no clue how we got there.
It had a huge orange tree in the front with too many oranges. And there were a bunch of dead and smashed oranges in the front lawn.
The house had a bunch of beautiful sunflowers along the left side and a small garden on the right. Like I said, it was cute, but it wasn't all that. Mom just stared at it for like 10 minutes.
And then, you'll never guess, my abuelita came out. I haven't seen her since I was like 10, but I know it's her. She's like an older, shrink-wrapped version of my mom.
I hadn't spoken to her in years because she never. Never mind. It doesn't matter.
She looked all cute in her flower dress and purple chanclas. Mom yelled Doug again, but I wasn't falling for that twice. I got out of the car and ran to my grandmother and I gave her the biggest hug. I kept having Mom over, but at first she wouldn't get out. And then she finally did. And they didn't even talk. They just started hugging and crying. And then I'm crying and I don't even know why. I know that we're mad at each other for a while, but I don't know about what. And then my abuela asked my mom what happened to her priest, and she started to cry even harder. By the time we were done, all of our makeups were a mess.
I have to admit, until that moment, I didn't realize just how much I needed to see her. It was almost worth the price of a duck. I'm kidding, officer.
Mom decided to cancel our nail appointment, which I desperately needed. But it was all good. We helped Nana throw away the oranges from the lawn. We made fresh tortillas together. And my grandmother's skin is flawless, so she taught my mother and I how she uses the orange skins, sunflowers, and manteca as part of a mix in her beauty regimen. I don't know what magic my abuela has, but she seemed to have calmed down the dragon that lives inside my mother.
It was just good to be around her. And I don't know what kind of magic my mother has, but my daughter didn't check her phone once for hours while we spent time with her. Just the three of us. I love just listening to her speak.
And I'm watching them together. And I'm just so glad that I'm there. That I can just sit and listen. Because I never get to see them together, enjoying each other anymore.
I forgot how funny she was. Or maybe my mom became more funny now that she didn't have to take care of us. I wonder if that's what I have in store for me. Once I get baby Satan out of the house, of course. Although I do remember just before we left my mother's, I was thinking, if Olivia decides to stay around a couple more years before she takes on the world, it wouldn't be that bad.
We always have to be so strong to prove something. And here we are, just the three of us, just being us. Laughing, no judgment. And I miss that, Thank you.
But then we tried to leave. And guess what was missing?
So that's the story. That's my report. Can you help us? Because if you ask me, the one mistake I made was that I left the keys in the car when I went to hug my grandmother. But my mom didn't notice either. It was all emotional, I mean, is it my fault my abuela lives in the hoodiest of hoods and someone with no taste stole a beat-up green Prius with a duck lodged in the front? Okay, well, maybe the car part is on me, but I just wanted to learn how to drive my cute VW bug. Is that so wrong?
I cannot win with her. I have never had a disaster of a day like today.
When you go and finish my mother's statement, can you tell her I'm very sorry? And that today...
Don't tell her when you interview her. I don't want her off the hook. But today
felt like it was really, really good.
Today was really special.
Just leave those files on my desk. Thanks.
hungry? Get all you want. There is enough goodness in this world for everyone. I'm so glad you're back again. I hope you had some fun. As you can see, joy is not just laughter. Joy could be just taking the time to understand someone. The next pillars we will see are the pillars of forgiveness and gratitude. So essential to joy in your life. Kind of like good barbecue.
Now it is my pleasure to share our next video submitted by our friends from the PGK Dance Project. What we are about to watch is a piece called Deeply Rooted. It's all about standing in your truth, whatever that is for each of us. Enjoy. Now, I'm happy to welcome our next speaker, Peter G. Kalivas. He's originally from Long Island, New York, where he discovered music and dance through his Greek roots. Formerly, he studied dance at the University of the Arts, the Pennsylvania Ballet, the Joffrey Ballet, and the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater Schools, where he was invited to join the second Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater Company, Ailey 2. Notably, as a dancer, he was an original member of the Sean Curry Company in New York, originating now well-known roles in Mr. Curran's acclaimed works and appearing in US and international tours. As a choreographer, his work has been produced, presented, and commissioned by a wide variety of companies in 20 countries, including the first American choreographer to create work for the Belize National Dance Company, the State Opera Ballet of Almaty, Kazakhstan, and Ballet Municipal de Lima, Peru. Additionally, he has choreographed on and off Broadway and for American and European TV, and his work has been presented at the Broadhurst Theater in New York City, Tanz Spectacle Europa, German TV, Dick Clark's Rockin' Eve for ABC TV, Le Festival d'Avignon, France, Dance Platform Turkey in both Istanbul and Ankara, the Dance in Taiwan Festival Taipei, and Dance Kaleidoscope Los Angeles, among many others. Adding to his international influence, Kalivas has been a Fulbright Scholar at Kyung-hee University in Seoul, South Korea, and a Senior Cultural Specialist for the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C., where he and his company represented American contemporary dance abroad via projects of mutual appreciation and understanding, and were recognized by President Barack Obama. He relocated to San Diego from New York in 2002, where he established the PGK Project, a production company which houses his contemporary repertory company, the PGK Dance Project, using creative placemaking strategies to make more diverse quality dance more affordable, more easily available, and more relevant to all through community-based partnerships and collaborations. So now it's my pleasure to welcome the Artistic Director of PGK Dance Project, Peter Kalivas. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Susanna. It's so great to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, you know, we just watched this incredible video that you produced. What an incredible accomplishment, especially during a pandemic. I mean, the fact that you were able to pull off such a beautiful and high quality, top-notch production obviously took a lot of collaboration. And so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that, how it came together.
Oh, sure. Well, the collaboration, I worked with Ryan Kortotomi from San Diego, the media group here in town. And this
Media Arts San Diego, right?
Yeah, Media Arts San Diego. And it was our second time working together. And so bringing him into my world and asking him to apply his skill set to not just capture dance, but really let dance still continue to tell its story and to have these deep, tremendous, vibrant impact that I think dance can have.
Yeah, I mean, we felt like we were a part of it. And tell us about the choreographers. You have some Kronk in there. What's going on?
So I worked with, this is my second collaboration with Junkyard Dance Crew. I live in District 4 as well, and they do too. And so we really want to be ambassadors of this community. And myself being a contemporary artist, and then really working in the realm of really contemporary hip hop. It's not really traditional hip hop, but then venturing into crumping, which is a very, very visceral and very frenetic and extremely highly physical, athletic way of expression. And really being able to capture that and let them feel self-represented rather than me portraying them, but giving them the platform and the space to be who they are, and then working with their founding director, Donovan Kearns Johnson, right? So he is featured in the film along with Shiloh, and then Melisha Brown is their director. And she and I co-directed and coached those scenes with the guys, which I'm just so thrilled about. And the other collaborator was Minerva Tapia, who I've been following for probably 20 years. She is Grupo de Danza Minerva Tapia from Tijuana, and she is a dance theater artist, so highly theatrical, and she really pulls from her North Mexican roots of movement. So she's really pulling in from something very, very rural and very, very stark, and then she's combining it with her own background of contemporary modern dance.
Yeah, I love this quote that you sent. It says, "In a world of compromise and challenge, it's important we stand deeply rooted in movement, grounded and founded in who you are." So, you know, you mentioned that you've incorporated Greek folk dance movement and then shifted to hardcore contemporary. And I'd love for you to just talk about your Greek roots. Greece has one of the most complex histories and traditions in human history. It's the birth of democracy. It's the beginnings of theater and philosophical thought. I mean, what are the rituals and traditions that resonated the most for you growing up, and what is your relationship with them now?
Well, those questions are phenomenal. You know, I really came, I really got close to understanding what it was to be Greek when I began to dance Greek folk dances, and when I began to learn the songs. And then, of course, when I began to learn how to speak Greek, which is something that was very important to my parents, and then understanding the orthodoxy and what that's about and how that really teaches us how to be as people. Now, I'm wearing the meander, right, which is the eternity symbol, which is really founded in our culture, but it goes across many cultures. And the idea of the eternity ring, this symbol, the meander, is that it really does open up. And that's why when you look at Greek folk dances, we're holding hands. We're not closing anyone out. And so we always hold hands. And if you watch Greek dances in different kinds of contexts, we always see someone on the outside and immediately the circle opens and brings them in.
Yes.
So Greekness is not an exclusive concept, right? It's in everyone and in everything. That's what I love about the culture, and that's what I love about the philosophy of the Greek culture. When you eat the food, when you learn how to cook the food, when I'm speaking Greek, there's a certain feeling in your mouth, right?
Yeah.
Of being who you are, who you're supposed to be, right?
I know
And
the
so,
feeling for sure
exactly.
in Spanish for myself. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when like that, you are who you are. And so folk dance is not something you perform, it's something
Right.
you do.
It's
And
an
then
experience.
exactly, it's how you're being Greek, it's how you're being yourself. And if other people happen upon it and then they become witnesses to it, it empowers it and it amplifies it even that much more. And so this body becomes the instrument of my culture. It becomes a symbol of all of that.
Wow. Okay. So much there. I loved all of that. So you know, living in your truth and the founding of the PGK Dance Project kind of started with that, right? I mean, we're talking about humor and acceptance in this grander conversation, and now like body positivity is the thing that everyone wants to talk about and all of that. And you were like really literally on the forefront of that. I mean, when it comes to dance, talk to us a little bit about why that.
Sure. I mean, when I was 16, and I have to start here because it's very important. When I was 16, I saw the movie Fame, and that was the moment when I needed to when I knew that was my shift, and that world was where I wanted to be because I could entertain people now. And seeing people's eyes light up because of something I was doing, ballet, contemporary dance, jazz, whatever that is. And so then I decided to become a dancer, a professional dancer. I went to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, but I got this scholarship because I auditioned for the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater School in New York City. And this was still in the 80s, and Mr. Ailey was still alive.
Wow.
He was very much alive. And I auditioned for, there were 10 spots available for a scholarship. And 400 guys, including myself, showed up for these 10 spots. Well, I got all the way down to number 11. And Mr. Ailey got up from his chair and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "There's something about you. We don't have a spot for you right now, but there's something about you. And I want you to go back to Philadelphia and train with these fantastic teachers at the university there. And I want you to come back to me."
And you did.
And I did. After graduation, I went back. And a year after I went back to the Ailey School, I was in the second Ailey company.
Wow.
And it's because he was all about inclusion.
Yeah.
Mr. Ailey was for me, Mr. Ailey was the first social justice pioneer in dance. Because when you looked at his first company, everyone was there. And that's why I've modeled my company after him, because everyone must be there. Because I myself experienced extreme prejudice against this body in dance. I'm 5'4", and in dance, the male is expected. There's these assumptions about what the male dancing body is supposed to look like, and how it produces dance off of its frame. We're all supposed to just have walked out of a Disney film, 6 feet tall, dark, rich, access to everything, right? Like unlimited access, right? But then this body is capable of unlimited access if you get out of its way.
Yeah, whoa. Yes. What do you think is the future of dance? What would you like to see happen? What do you think the next generation should be doing?
Wow, that's a heavy question. Well, first of all, I think that we need to keep the live in-person experiential portion of dance there. I like it when people go someplace to have an inclusive experience and meet strangers. It's the same notion of breaking bread. It's the same thing, right? That's when you get to know each other. That's when you stop fearing each other. That's when you stop making assumptions about each other. Is because you all have to be there and to realize that these assumptions are not correct, that you were wrong.
See, this is what's been so interesting about the pandemic, is that because of the isolation, it's actually created the perfect scenario for this division. That's because you don't have, I've always been able to talk to anyone, and find a connection with anyone, regardless of what their political beliefs are or any of that. I've always been able to come to the table and, with someone, and there's something about just being in the presence of the other person. It's like you're able to just look them in the eyes and find the common humanity in one another. But being in the virtual space, it was all removed. So you had a whole year of just being stuck in whatever your computer told you, and whatever algorithm you clicked, and all of a sudden you fell into this like rabbit hole of like this bizarre bubble of belief. And we all did it. We all fell into our bubbles. And everyone thinks they're right and all those things. But I just find it really, really fascinating. There's this Tibetan saying that I want to share with you. It says that wisdom is like rainwater. It gathers in the low places. What has been the rainwater that has gathered in you this past year? What's the wisdom that you've pulled from this last year of the pandemic experience?
It's, it's actually kind of the same wisdom that I've tried to carry for a long time. It's to be open and available to myself and to everyone else that needs anything. In dance, we are one big family, and we have to stay that way because it's the only way that dance will survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen so many wonderful collaborations happen as a result of the pandemic. And, I hope we don't lose sight of that, and 10 years from now, forget that it all happened. Time is a funny thing,
Yeah, if I go back to your previous question about what I think should be happening in the future of dance, I would say it's collaborations and partnerships, because that is the one thing that I think historically has lacked in dance, because we think that, we become very singular. I don't want to use the word silo. We become singular. Like, I'm going to have a dance company, as if that's going to make some kind of remarkable change. And yes, it can make a remarkable change, but sometimes it's a bit too localized. There's power in numbers.
Absolutely. So, final question for you. Tell me about one great lesson that you've learned from someone who's a generation away from you.
Well, I'm going to have to go back to Mr. Airley, because that's always the person I go to for all my advice. He is. And it's really about being tenacious and being persistent. I'm proud of myself for not listening to people who said no. Being persistent, right? Not giving up. Don't surrender. If you're meant to do this, you're going to do this. If you're meant to be a part of change, you will be there at the front of change.
So many great pieces of advice in this conversation. Thank you so much. So thank you so much for sharing this beautiful piece with us. I mean, it's so poignant. It's so necessary in this world that we're living in right now. And so definitely visit, the PGK Dance Project on social media and on their website. We'll put all that information in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter.
Thank you, Susanna. I appreciate you guys so much.
And now for something a little different. Our next video is from our friends at Project Blank. What you're about to watch is an excerpt from their production of Harawi, Chant d'amour et de mort, Song of Love and Death. The piece is about two virginal lovers who sacrifice themselves to achieve eternal cosmic joy and pleasure. Sound familiar? Think Romeo and Juliet, Tristan and Isolde. The piece combines composer Olivier Messiaen's own symbolist poetry and elements of the Quechua, an indigenous language spoken by Quechuan peoples living primarily in the Andes Mountains of Peru. So what a better way to represent the passions of young, blind, tragic, devastating love than through opera. The piece will be performed by Project Blank's co-founders, mezzo-soprano Dr. Leslie Latham and pianist Brendan Nguyen, featuring video art and staging by Anna Chiaretta Lavatelli. If this is your first time experiencing opera, don't worry, you'll be okay. We all started somewhere, and hopefully this little 10-minute excerpt sparks your interest in seeking out more opera in the future. Please enjoy Harawi.
Ciel,
Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the co-founders of Project Blank, Mr. Brendan Nguyen and Dr. Leslie Latham. Brendan Nguyen is a pianist who displays uncommon versatility as a performer, artist, and thinker. He has performed at prestigious concert halls and concert series, including the Red Cat Theater at the Disney Hall in Los Angeles, Zipper Hall, the Monday Evening Concert Series, Merkin Hall, and the Stone in New York. He is also a former member of the highly acclaimed Oberlin Contemporary Music Ensemble and has recorded with Carrier Records and Populist Records. Brennan's most recent project, The Seven Tragedies of Space Travel, was conceived as a multi-space, multimedia opera for solo pianist that mixes Western performance tradition with technology, food, and aliens who speak Vietnamese. Brennan's enthusiasm for contemporary music has led to a number of premieres and commissions, including works by dozens of notable composers, including the Pulitzer Prize-winning composer Roger Reynolds. Among his many achievements, Brendan has performed at the Bowdoin International Music Festival in Maine and the Chandelier International Music Festival in New York, where he was honored as one of the most outstanding alumni since the festival's foundation. Nguyen is a graduate of the Oberlin College Conservatory of Music in Ohio, UC San Diego, and has also studied at the Conservatorium van Amsterdam in the Netherlands. He currently teaches private piano to undergraduate majors and a keyboard skills class at UCSD. Dr. Leslie Latham is a San Diego-based mezzo-soprano who focuses much of her attention on contemporary narrative vocal works, not only as a singer and actor, but as a costume designer, director, writer, and composer of performance art pieces. Her work draws from television, film, and opera, centering on the depiction of women in popular culture, thanks to a very bizarre youth spent living in Las Vegas. Dr. Latham explores the intersectionality and performativity of gender, sexuality, and institutional norms in the genres of pop, experimental, and opera. Leslie seeks to consistently extend the theoretical and technical boundaries of the voice and has commissioned dozens of premiere works. And she is currently preparing a regional premiere of a work by Austrian composer Beat Führer. She has performed as a featured artist with City Water Ensemble at San Francisco Center for New Music, the Industry Opera Company in Los Angeles, Ensemble Echoy at the Monday Evening Concert Series in Los Angeles, the La Jolla Symphony under the direction of Stephen Schick, and as a founding member of Boston's Guerrilla Opera Company. Dr. Latham earned her Bachelor of Music degree in voice performance from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and a Master of Music degree in voice performance from the Boston Conservatory. She earned a Doctorate of Musical Arts degree in contemporary music performance from the University of California, San Diego, where she developed her interdisciplinary work under the guidance of the late violinist Janos Najewski and video artist Tara Knight. Welcome to you both.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure, yeah.
Sure thing. So, you know, for some people, this would have been their first experience in opera, you know, and I'd love for you to just, for those that maybe weren't able to pull or they were looking at one thing and then the other and reading at the same time, tell us a little bit about how this piece connects to the theme of the night, the generations and sacred rituals.
Sure. Well, this work was written by Olivier Messiaen in the early part of the 20th century, which was like forever ago at this point. And he was interested in this old story from indigenous peoples of Peru. And most cultures have some version of this myth where these two young lovers and kind of they decide to cross the veil and go to the other side via suicide or a love death of some kind. Like the Tristan myth is, I think, the most
like Tristan and Isolde or Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, exactly. That in death they decide that they're going to kind of merge and be these cosmic beings forever, and they can kind of be together and just forever. So yeah, I know. That's cute.
Coolish, yeah.
We all did it.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the foundation of this piece, and in this part of the story, the narrative, so it tells a through line of what happens when they take the potion and when they are changed and turn into stardust. He takes also these cues from Quechua, the language of several South American regions, and turns it into this kind of this physical transformation. He takes some of the text and uses it almost like onomatopoeia. Like there's this use of the word pia 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 it's supposed to replicate the sound of ankle bells from dancing rituals, and other things like mapanama is like this sort of incantation that returns over and over again. Kai pipas, my pipas, and kachi kachi, which is like this sort of grasshopper, this feeling of little excitement and electrical energy, and so he's using some Quechua as a way to kind of help transform from the earthly to the celestial. Pretty clever.
Ooh, that's so cool. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. So that you bring up something interesting too, because and I want to be that kind of middle ground. I do love opera, but I want to be that kind of middle ground for those that have never experienced opera, because what we do well here at Vanguard Culture is that we bring together communities that typically never intersect. And so for some people, this will be their first introduction to opera. It's not always necessary for you to understand what the singer is saying.
Not
right?
always. No.
Yeah, and so that's the beauty of opera, is that you're really there to feel the feeling, to experience it all as a whole. And so if you don't speak French and you don't speak Quechuan, it's okay. Luckily we have our subtext there.
So I wasn't really exposed to opera until college, and I went to a really great school that had a really great opera program with some legendary teachers, and that's where I was first exposed to it. I think in music conservatory, all pianists are required to at some point accompany an opera singer. It's like this hazing ritual,
and it's not always pleasant for the opera singers too.
Yeah, yeah. You learn a lot about how to interact with people. Yeah. But what was amazing was witnessing lessons with these amazing pedagogues. Just like the lengths that operatic singers go to train their bodies to do this miraculous thing.
The physicality of it is
these are skull as a to compete with like a giant grand piano in terms of sheer volume. It's amazing what they can do, and orchestras,
and a stage full of more singers.
Yeah,
more opera singers. There's a lot to fight against.
Leslie, tell us about your aha moment, if you had one, or why opera?
Well, that is the question, I think, because there's so much kinds of singing out there that has spoken to me as powerfully as opera singing has in the past. And my sort of family legacy with music is that my parents were in sort of amateur garage guitarists, and they played weekly with my cousins would come over, and they would have like these Saturday jam sessions. And I was in choir, and I was doing musical theater in middle school and high school, and my choir teacher in high school, this man named Michael Kirshner, he kind of saw a little something, and he planted some kernels for me that are very easily traceable to him. And he started to kind of to expose me to different kinds of musics, not even just opera, but also experimental music and experimental pop music, and how that these two worlds could converge. And I think that the hook, like the was seeing one in person. This like a Russian opera company was touring, and it was Frederica von Stade. She was doing a concert, like she was touring for a record, and we're in Las Vegas, so you stop in Las Vegas. And so she came to UNLV. We all got our student rush tickets, and had never experienced this type of like physical sympathetic vibration that you get when you're in the same room with somebody using their voice in this very specific way. And it was that was very, 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 very moving. And that's
definitely one of the things that we should mention too, is, opera
it's something you have to experience in person. It's just, it just
Yeah.
is, you know, you really can't understand the power that it takes to exude that kind of sound until you're in the presence of it. And so video certainly doesn't do it justice ever in any scenario. So, you know, but what you've created is different than the traditional opera experience. You produce a full experience, and if you ever, now that the world is starting to open up back up, I highly encourage you all to follow Project Blank and try to experience this in person, which is really very exciting. You do very immersive type of opera where you have projections of by independent visual artists and you know, experimental music mixed in, and so there's a lot going on. Tell us about your practice, or like what it all includes, what kind of inclusivity practices you have when it comes to opera.
It's in the name of our silly company, Project Blank, you know, that every project is really thought up from the ground up. And of course, in rethinking trivial matters, we have to rethink the big things too. And we definitely had to take a look at ourselves and realize that, like, we too are prone to defaulting to performing works by, you know, dead white guys, or, you know, and usually like the first people that we would think of to hire to work with are like, you know, like our white male friends who are great and they've written amazing pieces for us, but we also have incredible artists, friends, and creators of all, you know, shapes and sizes and colors, and you know, we've made a pretty concerted effort to you know, practice what we're preaching, and to showcase these amazing artistic voices. So we really are excited for our, you know, upcoming seasons, and we're exploring a lot of really, you know, fascinating topics around identity and immigration and workers' rights, and we hope that shines through in our work.
So if you are somebody who loves epic stories, epic adventures, the opera might just be the thing for you. So I have another final question for you both. We're talking about generations, and we're talking about, you know, legacy and all of those things. What is the best piece of advice or the best thing that you've learned from someone who's a generation away from you or more, older or younger? It could be.
Mine is, and memory is a weird thing. I think this came from him, but it could have been somebody else. But I think this was from Michael Kirshner in high school. And he would say, you know, he is a very snarky and sarcastic human. And when we're in a rehearsal, he'll always say, never louder than lovely, you know, which was always just to like, have like, that has been a bit of my mantra. But for him, it was this idea that you need to understand what your body can do at this very moment, and accept that this is what your body can do for you at this moment right now, and understand that boundary to say, I see you, I'm going to go to this. And then maybe you can work on exceeding that little boundary and then pushing that a little further and then a little further, but understanding listening to what your body is telling you is possible. And that stuck with me for a very, very long time.
Yeah, it's great advice. How about you?
Actually mine happened quite recently. It was more of a validation of a very simple lesson, I guess. But so shortly after the show had ended, our production ended, my body kind of shut down. I got really sick. Actually just got over like bad cough, and it just happened to go inside with the weekend that my parents from Seattle were visiting, and it's the first time I'd seen them in, you know, since before the pandemic. And of course, like, I'm sick and bedridden, and mommy comes to take care of me, and I'm eating delicious chicken soup and everything. And at one point she was doing my laundry. Because I was just like useless. And as she was moving things from the washer to the dryer, I quickly remembered that like one of my favorite like luxury polos was in there, and that it should not be in the dryer. And I'm like, oh mom, can you pull the Burberry polo out? And she's like, okay, fine. And I'm like, it's the black polo. But the thing is, that's like all I own is black stuff. So she's like pulling stuff, putting in the dryer. And then I realized like, I feel bad. I'm just like, Mom, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. And she just muttered under her breath. She said like, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up.
Aww.
And there was this determination, and it reminded me of her immigration story, which we can say for another time. But my mom is a freaking warrior and survived some of the worst things any human should survive. And to see in that kind of, you know, that moment where she's just trying to fish out a polo for me, it like that drive to not give up was still there. That same one that allowed her and my sisters to survive the Vietnam War. And I took that moment in my like pathetic sickness to remind myself like that I should never give up.
It resonated for you, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you for sharing. You know, mothers are special. You know, and what I repeat over and over again in front of my children is something that I'm very thoughtful. I try to be thoughtful about when I'm trying to teach a lesson or something, and never giving up. You know, we're not quitters. We're not quitters here, and we're not bullies. We're the people that stand up to bullies. We're the, you know, there's a lot of things that I always bring about, you know, that I hope that it seeps in, I hope, you know, and so it gives me hope by you saying that's not something that she just said while she was doing laundry. It's something that I'm sure she said over and over your whole life. And so it clearly resonated for you, but it was a reminder that you needed. And so that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing these, you guys. Thank you both so much for spending time with us today. Sure thing. Bye.
Thanks.
And that is the end of our event. Thank you so much for joining us. We invite you to experience the rest of our series throughout the year, womxn on September 3rd and Our Earth on November 18th. If any or all of these organizations inspired you today, please consider making a donation to help them stay afloat during this very uncertain time. You may visit our event page for more information about the organizations that were represented here today. You may follow Vanguard Culture on social media at Vanguard Culture, at Culturally Savvy, or visit vanguardculture.org to be a part of our season. Thank you again, and be well.